Mr. Bennet, you thought you were committing the perfect crime. You researched untraceable poisons. You carefully calculated dosages. You maintained the facade of a devoted husband. You even practiced your grief in preparation for your wife's death. Judge Michael Torres's voice cut through the silent Fairfax County Circuit Court in Virginia, his words heavy with contempt. But you made one fatal mistake. You committed your crime in a house filled with devices that recorded everything. Your Alexa heard you ordering arsenic. Your Ring cameras captured you adding poison to your wife's coffee. Your smart TV recorded your internet searches. Your own technology, the smart home system you were so proud of, became the witness that will send you to prison for the rest of your life. The date was October 23rd, 2024. The defendant standing before Judge Torres was 42-year-old Michael Bennet, a successful corporate attorney who had spent 6 months systematically poisoning his wife, Rebecca Bennet, with arsenic, adding small doses to her morning coffee each day, while believing he was committing an undetectable crime that would allow him to inherit her $3.2 million estate, collect $2 million in life insurance, and start a new life with his mistress. Michael had researched extensively. He had learned that arsenic poisoning could mimic chronic illness. He had calculated dosages that would cause progressive sickness without immediate death, making Rebecca's eventual demise appear to be from natural causes or undiagnosed disease. He had been meticulous, careful, and confident that his plan was foolproof. What he hadn't counted on was that every step of his crime had been documented by the very smart home devices he had installed throughout their Fairfax home, a 50,000 integrated system of cameras, voice assistants, smart appliances, and connected devices that he had proudly told friends made his home the most technologically advanced house in the neighborhood. Those devices had recorded his Amazon searches for arsenic for sale, his voice commands to Alexa asking about symptoms of arsenic poisoning, his Ring doorbell capturing packages of poison being delivered, his smart speaker recording conversations with his mistress where he discussed Rebecca's declining health, and even his smart refrigerator's internal camera photographing him as he added white powder to Rebecca's coffee creamer bottle. The jury has found you guilty of attempted murder, poisoning, and conspiracy to commit murder, Judge Torres continued, his voice rising with intensity. They have recommended the maximum sentence 40 years in prison. This court accepts that recommendation. You are hereby sentenced to 40 years in the Virginia Department of Corrections. You will be 82 years old before you are eligible for release. Michael's face went pale. Throughout his trial, he had maintained confidence that the smart home evidence would be deemed inadmissible due to privacy concerns, that his careful planning would create reasonable doubt that his status as a respected attorney would generate jury sympathy. The reality of a 40-year sentence was crashing over him like a wave. In the gallery, 38-year-old Rebecca Bennet sat in a wheelchair, still recovering from 6 months of systematic poisoning that had nearly killed her. She had lost 45 pounds, suffered kidney and liver damage that would require ongoing treatment, and endured months of agonizing illness while the man she loved and trusted was slowly murdering her. But she was alive barely, and she was about to watch her husband be sentenced for trying to kill her. You poisoned your wife every morning for 6 months, Judge Torres stated, his voice sharp with condemnation. You watched her suffer. You watched her lose weight, lose her hair, develop tremors and seizures. You took her to doctors while knowing exactly what was causing her symptoms. You comforted her while continuing to poison her. And you did all of this believing you would inherit her money, collect her life insurance, and start a new life with your mistress. You are not just a would-be murderer. You are a calculating, cold-blooded predator who tried to kill the woman who loved you. Judge Torres paused, his gaze burning into Michael. Your smart home devices recorded everything, every purchase, every search, every conversation, every moment you added poison to your wife's coffee. The very technology you installed to make your life more convenient became the silent witness that exposed your crime. And that is the ultimate irony of your case. You were so confident in your plan that you never considered that your own house was documenting your attempted murder. The judge concluded with words that would be quoted in countless articles about the intersection of technology, privacy, and criminal justice. You will spend the next 4 decades in prison knowing that you destroyed your life, your career, and your freedom, because you underestimated the technology in your own home. Your smart home was smarter than you were, and it saved your wife's life. As bailiffs moved to escort Michael from the courtroom, he turned to look at Rebecca one final time. She stared back at him not with the love she had once felt, but with a mixture of grief, betrayal, and grim satisfaction that justice was being served. The man who had shared her bed, her life, her dreams for nearly 15 years had spent the last 6 months trying to murder her while she slept. And he would have succeeded if not for the digital breadcrumbs he had unknowingly left throughout their technology-filled home. But to understand how a successful attorney came to poison his wife with arsenic, while their smart home devices silently documented his crime, how Rebecca survived and discovered the truth, and how this case became a landmark in the use of smart home data as criminal evidence, we must return to the beginning, to the Bennett marriage, to Michael's affair and financial motives, and to the morning of January 15, 2024, when he added arsenic to his wife's coffee for the first time. Part 1. The Perfect Couple. Rebecca Ann Morrison had met Michael James Bennett in 2007 when both were young professionals establishing their careers in the Washington, D.C. area. Rebecca, 21 at the time, was working as a junior financial analyst at a prominent investment firm while completing her MBA at Georgetown University. Michael, 25, was a first-year associate at a prestigious corporate law firm, working brutal hours but driven by ambition to make partner before age 35. They seemed perfect together, testified Rebecca's best friend, Jennifer Martinez, during the trial. Rebecca was brilliant with numbers and analysis. She could look at a company's financials and immediately see patterns others missed. Michael was charismatic, ambitious, and charming. They were both driven, both successful, both building impressive careers. Everyone thought they were the ideal power couple. Michael and Rebecca married in June 2009 in an elegant ceremony in Alexandria, Virginia, attended by 200 guests including partners from Michael's law firm, executives from Rebecca's investment company, and friends and family from across the country. The wedding was featured in a local magazine's Notable Weddings section, with the couple described as 2 of the Washington area's rising young stars. The early years of their marriage appeared happy and successful. Michael made partner at his law firm in 2015, achieving his goal right on schedule, and his income rose to approximately $450,000 annually. Rebecca had risen to senior vice president at her investment firm by 2016, managing a portfolio worth over $800 million and earning approximately $320,000 annually, plus substantial bonuses in strong years. Combined, the Bennetts had a household income exceeding $800,000 in good years, placing them firmly in the upper echelons of American wealth. They purchased a 4,500 square foot home in Fairfax in 2014 for $1.2 million, drove luxury vehicles, took expensive vacations, and lived the lifestyle they had both envisioned when they first met as ambitious young professionals. Michael and Rebecca worked incredibly hard, but they also enjoyed the fruits of their success, testified Rebecca's colleague, David Chen. Rebecca would talk about their trips to Europe, their plans to buy a vacation home, their investment portfolio. She was proud of what they'd built together. She thought they were partners building a life. She had no idea Michael was planning to kill her. What most people didn't know was that behind the facade of success, Michael Bennett was drowning in debt and facing financial pressures that his ego wouldn't allow him to acknowledge publicly. Despite his substantial income, Michael had developed expensive habits that exceeded even his generous salary gambling on sports, investing in high-risk cryptocurrency ventures, and maintaining a lifestyle of expensive cars, watches, and status symbols that required spending far beyond his means. Michael had a gambling problem that he hid from Rebecca, testified forensic accountant Sarah Williams during the trial. Analysis of his financial records shows he was betting on sports regularly, sometimes $20,000 or $30,000 per week. Some weeks he won, but over time he lost significantly more than he won. Between gambling losses and high-risk investments that failed, Michael had accumulated approximately $480,000 in secret debts by late 2023, debts Rebecca knew nothing about because Michael maintained separate accounts and credit cards he hid from her. Michael's financial problems were compounded by his narcissistic need to maintain appearances. He leased a new Mercedes every 2 years, wore a $35,000 Rolex, bought expensive suits from bespoke tailors, and picked up tabs at expensive restaurants to project success and wealth. His need to appear successful had driven him deeply into debt, and by late 2023, his creditors were becoming aggressive about collecting. Michael was facing potential financial exposure that would humiliate him professionally and socially, Williams testified. His law firm would likely discover his debts during periodic financial reviews required for partners. His gambling and bad investments would become known. The image he had cultivated so carefully would be destroyed. He needed a significant infusion of money to pay his debts and avoid exposure, and Rebecca's death would provide exactly that. Rebecca Bennett had been far more financially prudent than her husband. She had accumulated substantial wealth through careful investing, saving, and her own career success. By late 2023, Rebecca's personal assets included an investment portfolio worth approximately $2.4 million, a 401k worth approximately $420,000, partial ownership in the Fairfax home, approximately $380,000 a year in equity after mortgage. A life insurance policy through her employer worth $2 million, with Michael as the primary beneficiary. In total, Michael stood to inherit or collect approximately $5.2 million. If Rebecca died, more than enough to pay his debts, maintain his lifestyle, and start fresh. and his research had convinced him that slow arsenic poisoning would allow him to collect this money while avoiding suspicion of foul play. But money wasn't Michael's only motive for wanting Rebecca dead. In August 2023, 5 months before he would begin poisoning his wife, Michael had begun an affair with 29-year-old Vanessa Torres, a paralegal at a different law firm whom he had met at a legal conference. Michael presented himself as separated from his wife and heading toward divorce. Vanessa testified during the trial, her voice shaking with a mixture of anger and humiliation at being deceived. He said his marriage had been over for years, but they were staying together for financial reasons until they could work out a divorce settlement. He said he was just waiting for the right time to finalize the separation. I believed him. I thought we were building a relationship. I had no idea he was actually planning to murder his wife. Michael and Vanessa's affair intensified throughout fall 2023. They met at hotels, exchanged hundreds of text messages, and discussed their future together once Michael was free from his marriage. Michael showed Vanessa houses they might buy together, discussed vacation destinations, and painted a picture of a life they would build once he had resolved his current situation. What Vanessa didn't know, but which would later be revealed through recovered text messages and voice recordings, was that Michael's references to resolving his situation actually meant murdering Rebecca rather than divorcing her. Divorce would cost Michael at least half the marital assets and potentially spousal support, testified divorce attorney Patricia Morrison, called as an expert witness by the prosecution. Given Rebecca's income and their accumulated wealth, Michael might have walked away with $1 to $1.5 million after divorce, and he'd lose his house, half his retirement accounts, and potential spousal support obligations. By killing Rebecca and making it look natural, he'd inherit everything: her separate property, her life insurance, the house, all of it. Financially, murder was far more profitable than divorce. In December 2023, Michael began researching arsenic poisoning in earnest. His internet search history later recovered from his laptop, his work computer, and even his smart TV's browser documented extensive research into how arsenic works, how it can be administered undetected, what symptoms it causes, and how to avoid detection. Search history from December 8, 2023. Michael's home laptop. Arsenic poisoning symptoms. How much arsenic is lethal? Can arsenic be detected in autopsy? Arsenic in coffee taste. Chronic arsenic poisoning versus acute. Search history from December 15, 2023. Michael's smart TV browser. Famous arsenic murder cases. How did arsenic murderers get caught? Modern forensic detection of arsenic. Arsenic mimics what diseases? Search history from December 22, 2023. Michael's work laptop. Where to buy arsenic? Arsenic trioxide for sale. Industrial arsenic suppliers. Undetectable poisons. The search history revealed sophisticated planning and research. Michael wasn't acting impulsively. He was studying the method carefully, learning from historical cases and trying to identify how to commit arsenic murder while avoiding the mistakes that had led to other killers being caught. On December 28, 2023, Michael placed an order through an online chemical supply company for 100 grams of arsenic trioxide, claiming he needed it for art restoration purposes. The order was placed using his Amazon account at 11:47 p.m., a fact documented not just in Amazon's records, but also by his Alexa device, which had heard and recorded his voice commands as he searched for arsenic suppliers. "Alexa, search Amazon for arsenic trioxide." Michael's voice could be heard clearly on the recording played during trial, his words captured by the Echo Dot device in his home office. The arsenic package was delivered on January 3, 2024, and its arrival was captured by the Bennett's Ring doorbell camera. Video footage showed a delivery driver dropping a small package, and later footage showed Michael retrieving the package and taking it into the house. Michael had believed the Ring camera only recorded when motion was detected at the front door. He didn't realize it had captured him receiving the very poison he would use to murder his wife. Over the following week, Michael prepared for his crime. He researched dosing schedules, learning that slow poisoning over weeks or months would be less suspicious than acute poisoning. He calculated that approximately 20-30 milligrams per day would gradually sicken Rebecca without causing immediate, obvious symptoms that would trigger medical investigation of poisoning. On January 14, 2024, Michael had a conversation with Vanessa Torres that would later prove crucial to establishing his intent and premeditation. The conversation took place in Michael's car as he drove home from meeting Vanessa at a hotel. Michael's car, a 2023 Mercedes S-Class, had an integrated voice recording system that automatically captured phone conversations for transcription purposes, a feature Michael had enabled but apparently forgotten about when he spoke with Vanessa. The recording captured Michael's voice. "Everything's going to work out soon. Rebecca's been having some health issues lately. Well, she's about to start having health issues. Within a few months I'll be free and we can be together. And financially, we'll be more than comfortable. Much more comfortable than if I'd just divorced her." Vanessa's voice, not understanding the significance of Michael's words. "Is she really that sick? I thought you said she was healthy." Michael's response was chilling. "She's not sick yet, but she will be. Trust me, nature is going to take its course, and soon I'll be a widower ready to start a new life with you." This recording recovered during the investigation when forensic experts examined all data from Michael's vehicle, provided direct evidence of Michael's plan to cause Rebecca's illness and death. At trial, prosecutors would argue it was essentially a confession captured by Michael's own car. On the morning of January 15, 2024, Michael Bennett added arsenic to his wife's coffee for the first time. It was a Monday morning, following the couple's normal weekday routine. Michael woke at 6 a.m., went downstairs to the kitchen, and prepared coffee using their high-end espresso machine, part of their elaborate smart home setup that included a smart refrigerator with internal cameras, smart countertop appliances, and voice-controlled lighting. What Michael didn't realize was that his smart refrigerator's internal camera, designed to help users see what food items they had without opening the door, had captured him retrieving the arsenic from where he had hidden it in the back of the refrigerator behind condiment bottles, and had photographed him adding white powder to Rebecca's coffee creamer bottle. The smart refrigerator camera took photos every time the door opened, creating a time-stamped record of contents. At 6:14 a.m. on January 15, 2024, the camera captured Michael opening the refrigerator, reaching toward the back, retrieving a small container, and adding contents to the coffee creamer. The image was grainy but clear enough to show Michael's distinctive USC Law School class ring and his Rolex watch both visible on his hands in the photo. Michael prepared Rebecca's coffee with the contaminated creamer, placed it on the kitchen counter, and called upstairs. "Babe, coffee's ready." Rebecca came downstairs at 6:25 a.m., dressed for work in business attire, and picked up the coffee Michael had prepared. "Thanks, honey," she said, kissing Michael on the cheek before taking her first sip of poisoned coffee. It was a routine morning interaction the couple had shared thousands of times over 15 years of marriage, except this time, Michael was attempting to murder his wife while she smiled at him with love and trust. The kitchen's Alexa device captured the interaction, recording Rebecca thanking Michael and their brief conversation about plans for that evening. Neither of them knew that the device was documenting the first morning of what would become a 6-month ordeal of systematic poisoning. Rebecca drank the entire cup of coffee, as she did every morning, then left for work around 7 a.m. Michael watched her drive away, then went to his home office and searched on his laptop. How long before arsenic poisoning symptoms appear? The answer: symptoms typically begin within 30 minutes to several hours for acute poisoning, but with chronic low-dose poisoning, symptoms might not appear for days or weeks. Michael was satisfied his plan was working exactly as he had researched. He would slowly poison Rebecca. Her symptoms would gradually worsen and be attributed to illness, and eventually she would die from what appeared to be organ failure or disease. What Michael hadn't counted on was that every step of his crime, from searching for arsenic, to ordering it, to adding it to Rebecca's coffee, to researching symptoms, had been or would be documented by the network of smart devices throughout his home. His smart home was creating a comprehensive digital record of his attempted murder. Over the following weeks, Michael added arsenic to Rebecca's coffee every morning, following his calculated dosing schedule. By early February 2024, Rebecca began experiencing symptoms. "I started feeling terrible around the second week of February," Rebecca testified during the trial, her voice still weak from her ordeal. "At first I thought I had the flu, nausea, vomiting, fatigue, but the symptoms didn't go away. They got worse. I was exhausted all the time. I couldn't keep food down. I developed a rash on my skin. My hair started falling out. I thought I was dying, but I had no idea what was wrong with me." Rebecca saw her primary care physician, Dr. Sarah Martinez, on February 20th, 2024, reporting her symptoms and expressing concern about her deteriorating health. Dr. Martinez initially suspected a virus or possible autoimmune condition and ordered standard blood work. The results showed some abnormalities in kidney and liver function, but nothing that immediately suggested poisoning. Rebecca's initial labs showed elevated liver enzymes and some kidney function impairment. But these findings can occur with many conditions, Dr. Martinez testified. "I was concerned, but my initial differential diagnosis included viral hepatitis, autoimmune disease, or medication reaction. I didn't suspect poisoning because Rebecca had no known exposure to toxins and no reason to suspect someone was poisoning her." Dr. Martinez prescribed supportive care and ordered additional tests. But Rebecca's condition continued to deteriorate throughout March 2024, as Michael continued adding arsenic to her coffee each morning. Rebecca began experiencing additional symptoms: severe abdominal pain, numbness and tingling in her hands and feet, peripheral neuropathy, confusion and difficulty concentrating, and progressive weight loss. I was terrified, Rebecca testified. I felt like my body was shutting down. I went from being a healthy, active 38-year-old to barely being able to get out of bed. I couldn't work. I had to take medical leave because I couldn't concentrate or handle my responsibilities. I spent most days lying on the couch, too weak and sick to do anything. And Michael was so supportive, or so I thought. He took me to doctor appointments. He made sure I took my medications. He brought me food and drinks. He seemed like a devoted, concerned husband. I never suspected he was the one making me sick. Throughout Rebecca's illness, Michael maintained his routine of poisoning her coffee every morning, while simultaneously playing the role of concerned, supportive husband. He took her to medical appointments, researched her symptoms online, while carefully using incognito mode or his work computer for arsenic-related searches, and expressed worry to friends and family about Rebecca's declining health. Michael called me several times during Rebecca's illness to update me on her condition, testified Rebecca's mother, Patricia Morrison. He sounded genuinely worried. He said doctors were running tests but couldn't figure out what was wrong. He said Rebecca was getting worse and he was scared they might lose her. I thought he was a wonderful husband, standing by Rebecca during her health crisis. It never occurred to me that he was the one poisoning her, that his concern was all an act. He's a sociopath, he fooled all of us. But Michael was also documenting his crime in ways he never realized. His conversations with Vanessa Torres about Rebecca's health problems were captured by various devices. Smart speaker recording from February 28, 2024. Michael's home office. Michael's voice to Vanessa during a phone call. Rebecca's really sick now. Doctors still can't figure out what's wrong. At this rate, I'll be free sooner than I expected. Her liver and kidneys are failing. It won't be much longer. Vehicle recording from March 15, 2024. Michael's car. Michael to Vanessa. I can't wait to be with you full time. Just a few more months. Rebecca's getting worse every day. The doctors have basically given up. They're just doing palliative care now. When she passes, we'll wait a respectful amount of time, and then we can be together openly. These recordings would later be recovered and used to establish Michael's intent, his knowledge that he was causing Rebecca's illness, and his expectation that she would die soon, all contradicting any claim that he was innocent or that Rebecca's illness was natural. By April 2024, Rebecca had lost 35 pounds, had visible sores on her skin, had lost significant amounts of hair, and was experiencing episodes of confusion and disorientation. Multiple specialists had examined her infectious disease doctors, oncologists, neurologists, but no one had identified the true cause of her symptoms. Rebecca's presentation was consistent with several possible conditions, none of which pointed clearly to arsenic poisoning, testified Dr. Robert Chen, one of the specialists who examined Rebecca. She had multi-system involvement: liver, kidneys, nervous system, skin, GI tract. We considered everything from rare cancers to exotic infections to autoimmune diseases. Arsenic poisoning wasn't on our differential diagnosis because we had no reason to suspect toxic exposure. Patients aren't routinely screened for arsenic unless there's specific indication to suspect poisoning. Rebecca was hospitalized in mid-April 2024 due to severe dehydration and kidney function that had deteriorated to near-failure levels. She spent a week in the hospital receiving IV fluids and supportive care. during which time Michael visited daily, maintaining his performance as a devoted husband. During Rebecca's hospitalization, Michael temporarily stopped adding arsenic to her coffee since he couldn't access her beverages in the hospital. Rebecca's condition stabilized somewhat with the IV fluids and removal of the poison source, and she was discharged on April 23, 2024, with home health care support. "I thought maybe I was getting better," Rebecca testified. "I felt slightly less sick in the hospital than I had been at home. I was hopeful that whatever was wrong with me was improving. But then I went home, started drinking my morning coffee again, and within a week I was declining again. It never occurred to me that the difference was being home versus being in the hospital. I never connected my illness to anything in my environment, especially not to my own husband poisoning my coffee." Michael resumed his poisoning routine as soon as Rebecca returned home, adding arsenic to her coffee every morning. By early May 2024, Rebecca's condition had deteriorated to the point where her doctors believed she might not survive much longer without identifying and treating the underlying cause. "We were running out of options," Dr. Martinez testified. "Rebecca was dying, and we didn't know why. We'd tested for everything we could think of. We'd consulted with specialists across multiple fields. We were considering experimental treatments for rare diseases, but Rebecca's organs were failing progressively. Without identifying the cause, we couldn't provide targeted treatment, and time was running out." On May 18, 2024, Rebecca was rehospitalized in critical condition. Her kidneys had deteriorated to the point of near failure. Her liver enzymes were severely elevated, and she was experiencing seizures and altered mental status. Her medical team made the decision to place her in the ICU and began considering whether she might need to be placed on dialysis to support her failing kidneys. "We thought Rebecca was going to die," Dr. Martinez testified, her voice breaking with emotion. "We'd done everything we could think of, but she continued to decline. I remember calling Michael to tell him we needed to prepare for the possibility that Rebecca might not survive, and he responded exactly as I would expect a loving husband to respond: shock, grief, denial. He seemed devastated. I would never have guessed he was the one causing her illness and that he was actually pleased she was dying according to his plan. But Rebecca's hospitalization in mid-May would prove to be the turning point that would save her life and eventually expose Michael's crime. Because once again, separated from her home environment and from the coffee Michael prepared for her, Rebecca's condition began to stabilize. And this time, an astute medical resident would notice the pattern that would finally lead to the truth. Dr. James Wong was a third-year internal medicine resident rotating through the ICU when Rebecca was admitted in May 2024. As part of his training, Dr. Wong was expected to review patients' complete medical records and look for patterns that might have been missed. When he reviewed Rebecca's chart, something caught his attention. "I noticed that Rebecca had been hospitalized twice, once in April and now in May," Dr. Wong testified. "And I saw that during her April hospitalization, her liver and kidney function had improved somewhat while she was in the hospital, only to worsen again after discharge. Now, during this current hospitalization, her labs were again showing slight improvement after several days away from home." That pattern suggested environmental exposure. Something in her home environment was making her sick. something she was being removed from during hospitalization. Dr. Wong mentioned his observation to Dr. Martinez, who immediately recognized the significance. If Rebecca's illness was related to environmental exposure, they needed to identify what toxin or substance she was being exposed to at home. Dr. Martinez ordered a comprehensive toxic metals panel testing for lead, mercury, cadmium, thallium, and arsenic. The arsenic test came back with shocking results, Dr. Martinez testified. Rebecca's blood arsenic level was 187 micrograms per liter. Normal levels are below 10 micrograms per liter. Rebecca had arsenic levels consistent with chronic, ongoing poisoning. This wasn't accidental exposure from contaminated water or food. This was systematic poisoning with significant quantities of arsenic over an extended period. The medical team immediately began chelation therapy to help remove the arsenic from Rebecca's system, and reported the poisoning to the Fairfax County Police Department as required by Virginia law for suspected poisoning cases. Detective Sarah Williams was assigned to investigate how Rebecca Bennett had been exposed to such high levels of arsenic. When I first got the call about a possible arsenic poisoning case, my immediate questions were about the source of exposure, Detective Williams testified. Accidental arsenic exposure can occur contaminated well water, certain occupational exposures, even some traditional medicines. But the levels in Rebecca's blood suggested sustained regular exposure to significant quantities of arsenic. That pattern is almost never accidental. Detective Williams interviewed Rebecca in the hospital on May 21, 2024, asking about possible sources of arsenic exposure. Rebecca was confused and frightened. She worked in an office. They had municipal water. She had no hobbies or activities that would expose her to arsenic. She couldn't think of any way she could have been poisoned. Then I asked Rebecca a question that would change the entire investigation, Detective Williams testified. I asked, "Who has access to your food and beverages? Who prepares your meals?" Rebecca's answer was immediate. "My husband, Michael, makes my coffee every morning. He's been doing it for years. It's part of our routine. He brings it to me before I leave for work." The detective's instincts immediately went on alert. A husband who prepared his wife's daily beverage, a wife being systematically poisoned, a pattern that suggested regular arsenic exposure, the pieces were falling into place. I asked Rebecca about her relationship with Michael, whether there were any problems in the marriage, any financial issues, any reason someone might want to harm her, Detective Williams testified. Rebecca was adamant that their marriage was solid, that Michael had been incredibly supportive during her illness, that he loved her and would never harm her. She could not conceive that her husband might be poisoning her. But Detective Williams had seen this pattern before domestic poisonings, where the victim trusted the perpetrator completely and couldn't imagine being betrayed. She decided to pursue the investigation quietly without alerting Michael that he was under suspicion. I obtained search warrants for the Bennett home, for Michael's financial records, and for his electronic devices, Detective Williams testified. I wanted to examine the house for arsenic and to see if there was evidence of Michael purchasing poison or researching poisoning. Given Rebecca's high blood arsenic levels and the fact that Michael prepared her daily coffee, I had probable cause to believe he might be the source of the poisoning. The search warrant was executed on May 24, 2024, while Rebecca remained hospitalized and while Michael was at work. Crime scene investigators spent hours searching the Bennett home, testing surfaces and substances for arsenic, collecting items from the kitchen, and seizing electronic devices. What they found would provide devastating evidence of Michael's guilt, evidence made possible by the extensive smart home technology Michael had installed throughout the house. The investigation of the Bennett home and Michael's electronic devices would reveal the most comprehensive digital documentation of a murder attempt that investigators had ever encountered. Michael's smart home, which he had proudly called the most technologically advanced house in the neighborhood, had systematically documented every aspect of his crime. Crime scene investigators found arsenic in multiple locations, residue in Rebecca's coffee creamer bottle, traces on the kitchen counter where Michael prepared coffee, and a small container of arsenic trioxide hidden in the back of the refrigerator behind condiment bottles. The arsenic container was labeled as Art Restoration Powder, but contained pure arsenic trioxide, testified forensic chemist Dr. Patricia Foster. We found Michael Bennett's fingerprints on the container. We also found arsenic residue on a small spoon stored in Michael's home office drawer, consistent with him measuring doses. The pattern of arsenic distribution in the home was consistent with systematic addition of poison to a single food or beverage item, in this case, the coffee creamer that only Rebecca used. But the physical evidence, while important, was only part of the case. The smart home devices provided a treasure trove of digital evidence that would prove Michael's guilt beyond any doubt, and would make this case a landmark in the use of smart home data in criminal prosecutions. Amazon Alexa recordings. Forensic examination of the Bennett's Amazon Echo devices revealed that they had captured numerous voice interactions relevant to the crime. While Alexa devices are designed to only record after hearing the wake word Alexa, they actually record several seconds before the wake word to ensure the full command is captured, and this buffer recording had captured fragments of conversations Michael thought were private. We recovered over 40 audio recordings from the Bennett's Alexa devices that were relevant to the investigation, testified FBI digital forensics expert Dr. James Rodriguez. These included Michael's voice commands searching for arsenic suppliers on Amazon, his questions to Alexa about arsenic poisoning symptoms, and even some background conversation fragments captured by the device's pre-wake word buffer. Selected Alexa recordings played at trial January 3, 2024, 11:47 p.m. Michael: Alexa, search Amazon for arsenic trioxide. Alexa: here's what I found for arsenic trioxide. January 22, 2024, 7:15 a.m. Michael: Alexa, what are symptoms of arsenic poisoning? Alexa: according to the EPA, symptoms of arsenic poisoning include March 10, 2024, 10:34 p.m. Michael: Alexa, how long does arsenic stay in the body? Alexa: according to medical sources, arsenic can remain in the body. Ring doorbell security camera footage. The Bennetts had Ring cameras at their front door, back door, and garage. Analysis of the footage revealed the delivery of the arsenic package on January 3, 2024, and multiple instances of Michael carrying items between his car and his home office that were consistent with hiding poison supplies. The Ring doorbell footage captured the delivery of a package from the chemical supply company on January 3rd, testified Detective Williams. Later footage showed Michael retrieving that package and taking it into the house. We traced the package tracking number to the order Michael had placed for arsenic trioxide. The Ring cameras had documented the delivery of the murder weapon directly to Michael Bennett. Smart refrigerator. Internal camera. The Samsung smart refrigerator in the Bennett kitchen had an internal camera system designed to photograph contents whenever the door opened, allowing users to see what food they had without opening the door. The system took photos every time the door was opened and stored them in a cloud account accessible through a smartphone app. The smart refrigerator proved to be one of the most valuable pieces of evidence, Dr. Rodriguez testified. The internal camera had photographed Michael Bennett on January 15th, the first day he added arsenic to Rebecca's coffee, retrieving the arsenic container from the back of the refrigerator and adding white powder to the coffee creamer bottle. The photos were time-stamped and geotagged, proving exactly when and where the poisoning occurred. The refrigerator photos, while grainy, clearly showed Michael's distinctive jewelry, his USC Law School ring, and his Rolex watch, and captured him in the act of contaminating Rebecca's coffee creamer. The prosecution would call this image the smoking gun photograph, literally capturing the defendant in the act of preparing to poison his wife. Smart TV browser history. The Bennett's Samsung Smart TV had an internet browser that Michael had used to research arsenic poisoning. He apparently believed that searches conducted on the TV would be less traceable than those on his computer or phone. He was wrong. Smart TVs store complete browser history, just like computers, Dr. Rodriguez testified. Michael Bennett's Smart TV browser history contained extensive searches about arsenic, how it works, how to administer it, what symptoms it causes, how to avoid detection. He conducted these searches late at night when Rebecca was asleep, apparently believing they wouldn't be discovered. But the TV stored every search and automatically backed up the data to Samsung's cloud servers. Vehicle Telematics Recording System. Michael's Mercedes S-Class had an integrated telematics system that recorded vehicle data, GPS locations, and even phone conversations conducted through the car's Bluetooth system. This system had captured numerous conversations between Michael and his mistress, Vanessa Torres, where Michael discussed Rebecca's illness and his plans for their future together. Modern luxury vehicles are essentially computers on wheels, testified automotive forensics expert Dr. Michael Chang. They track everything: where you go, how fast you drive, who you call, what you say during calls if you use the hands-free system. Michael Bennett's Mercedes had recorded dozens of conversations with Vanessa Torres, where he discussed Rebecca's declining health in ways that suggested foreknowledge and satisfaction that she was dying. The car's GPS data also showed he had driven to Vanessa's apartment 47 times over 6 months, documenting his affair. Smart Home Hub data. The Bennetts used a comprehensive smart home system with a central hub controlling lights, thermostats, security cameras, and appliances. The hub's activity logs showed Michael's patterns, times he was home, which rooms he accessed, which devices he controlled. The Smart Home Hub data established Michael's opportunity. Detective Williams testified. We could see that Michael was in the kitchen every morning between 6:08 and 6:30 a.m., the time when Rebecca's coffee was prepared. The smart home logs correlated perfectly with the refrigerator camera photos and the Ring camera footage, creating a comprehensive timeline of Michael's morning routine of poisoning his wife. Internet search history from all devices. Forensic examination of Michael's laptop, work computer, smartphone, tablet, and smart TV revealed extensive Internet searches about arsenic poisoning conducted over a 6-month period. December 2023. Research about arsenic types, effects, detection methods. January 2024. Searches for where to purchase arsenic, how to administer it. February-May 2024. Ongoing searches about arsenic poisoning symptoms, progression, how long until death. The search history painted a clear picture of premeditation and planning, testified Detective Williams. Michael researched arsenic extensively before beginning to poison Rebecca. Then he continued researching symptoms and progression as Rebecca became ill, essentially using her as a subject to study whether his research was accurate. The searches showed sophisticated criminal thinking and complete absence of empathy for his victim. The digital evidence was so comprehensive that prosecutors described it as the most thoroughly documented attempted murder in Virginia history. Michael had unknowingly created a complete record of his crime through his own smart home technology. On May 28, 2024, armed with overwhelming evidence from both traditional forensics and smart home data, Detective Williams obtained an arrest warrant for Michael Bennett. Michael was arrested at his law office in front of shocked colleagues who knew him as a successful, respected attorney, and had no idea he had spent 6 months trying to murder his wife. The interrogation of Michael Bennett, conducted on the evening of his arrest with his own defense attorney present. Ironically, Michael had called a fellow partner at his law firm to represent him, provided additional evidence of his guilt through his reactions to being confronted with the smart home evidence. Detective Williams began by informing Michael that Rebecca had been diagnosed with arsenic poisoning, and that investigation had led police to suspect the poisoning was deliberate rather than accidental. Mr. Bennett, your wife has been systematically poisoned with arsenic over the past 6 months. We've tested your home and found arsenic in her coffee creamer. We have evidence that you purchased arsenic online. We have digital records of you researching arsenic poisoning. And we have recordings from your own smart home devices documenting your crime. Michael's initial response was denial. This is absurd. I would never hurt Rebecca. I love her. If there's arsenic in our home, it must be accidental contamination. I never researched arsenic poisoning. This is a mistake or a setup. Detective Williams then began presenting the evidence, piece by piece, watching Michael's confident demeanor crack as he realized the extent of the documentation his own technology had created. We have your Amazon account showing you purchased 100 grams of arsenic trioxide on December 28th. The package was delivered to your home on January 3rd. Your Ring doorbell captured you receiving the package. Do you deny ordering arsenic? Michael hesitated, then claimed, I did order some chemicals for a project I was working on, art restoration, but I never used them to hurt anyone. We have your Alexa device recording you asking about symptoms of arsenic poisoning. We have your smart TV browser history showing extensive research about how arsenic works and how to administer it. We have your smart refrigerator's internal camera photographing you, adding white powder to Rebecca's coffee creamer bottle. Do you deny these devices recorded these actions? Michael's face went pale. I was doing research for a case at work, a client matter. the smart home stuff must be a mistake or misinterpretation. Detective Williams then played the vehicle recording of Michael's conversation with Vanessa Torres, where he discussed Rebecca's declining health and said, "She's not sick yet, but she will be." Michael's attorney immediately intervened. "We're done talking. My client invokes his right to remain silent." But the damage was done. Michael's initial denials had been contradicted by overwhelming evidence, and his attempt to explain away the smart home data had been transparently false. His interrogation, brief though it was, would be used at trial to show his consciousness of guilt and his inability to provide any innocent explanation for the evidence. Michael Bennett was charged with attempted murder in the first degree, poisoning, assault with intent to kill, and conspiracy to commit murder. Given that Rebecca had survived, he couldn't be charged with completed murder, but the charges still carried potential sentences of up to 40 years in prison. Michael posted a $2 million bond, borrowed against his law firm partnership stake, and was released pending trial, with conditions including no contact with Rebecca and electronic monitoring. His law firm immediately suspended him, and he became a pariah in the Washington, D.C. legal community as news of his charges spread. Michael went from being a respected partner at a prestigious law firm to being a defendant charged with trying to murder his wife, testified his former colleague, David Morrison. The firm conducted an internal investigation and discovered Michael had been embezzling client funds to cover his gambling debts, something we would never have known about if not for his arrest. He was disbarred, sued by clients, and completely ostracized. His entire career, his reputation, his standing in the community, all destroyed because of his crimes. Vanessa Torres, upon learning that Michael had been trying to murder his wife rather than divorcing her, cooperated fully with investigators and provided additional evidence of Michael's planning and intent. The text messages between Michael and Vanessa were introduced as evidence, showing Michael's discussions of being free soon and Rebecca's health deteriorating according to plan. "I felt like such a fool," Vanessa testified. "Michael had told me he was separated and heading toward divorce. I thought I was in a relationship with someone who was ending his marriage properly. Instead, I was the mistress of someone actively poisoning his wife. When I found out the truth, I was horrified. I immediately cooperated with police and provided everything, all our text messages, all his voicemails, everything. I wanted him prosecuted. He's a monster." Rebecca Bennett, still recovering in the hospital from 6 months of arsenic poisoning, had to process the devastating reality that the man she had loved and trusted for nearly 15 years had been systematically trying to kill her. The betrayal was almost incomprehensible. When Detective Williams told me that Michael had been poisoning me, I didn't believe it, Rebecca testified at a preliminary hearing, her voice still weak. I insisted it must be a mistake. Michael loved me. We were building a life together. But then Detective Williams showed me the evidence, the refrigerator photos, the Alexa recordings, the vehicle recordings of Michael talking about my death. I couldn't deny it anymore. The man I thought I knew didn't exist. The real Michael Bennett was someone who poisoned me every morning while kissing me goodbye and wishing me a good day. He watched me suffer for 6 months, knowing exactly what was causing it, and never showed a moment of genuine concern. He was planning my funeral while poisoning my coffee. The preliminary hearing in June 2024 established probable cause for trial, with Judge Torres ruling that the smart home evidence was admissible despite defense objections about privacy and whether devices could be witnesses against defendants. The defense has argued that the smart home evidence violates Mr. Bennett's Fourth Amendment rights and his right against self-incrimination. Judge Torres stated in his ruling on the preliminary motions. However, the Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches, and Mr. Bennett had no reasonable expectation of privacy in data he voluntarily transmitted to corporate servers through his use of smart home devices. He chose to install devices that record and transmit data. He accepted terms of service that allow that data to be stored and potentially accessed. The fact that this data was used to document his crimes does not make its collection or use unconstitutional. The trial was set for September 2024, giving both sides time to prepare what would become a landmark case in the use of smart home technology as criminal evidence. The trial of Michael Bennett began on September 9, 2024, in Fairfax County Circuit Court before Judge Michael Torres. The case had attracted enormous media attention nationally and internationally, with coverage focusing not just on the attempted murder, but on the unprecedented use of smart home data to document a crime. This is the first major criminal trial where smart home devices serve as the primary witnesses, noted legal analyst Professor Sarah Mitchell of Georgetown University Law School in media commentary before trial. Alexa, Ring cameras, smart refrigerators, smart TVs, all documenting the defendant's crimes in real time. It raises fascinating questions about privacy, technology, and the future of criminal investigations. Jury selection took 2 weeks given pre-trial publicity and the need to find jurors who could be impartial. The final jury consisted of 7 women and 5 men, ranging in age from 28 to 67, with diverse professional backgrounds including IT professionals, teachers, business people, and retirees. Lead prosecutor Jennifer Martinez's opening statement was powerful and direct. Michael Bennett tried to commit the perfect murder. He researched arsenic poisoning for weeks. He carefully calculated doses that would slowly kill his wife while making her death appear to be from natural illness. He poisoned Rebecca's coffee every morning for 6 months, while maintaining the performance of a devoted, concerned husband. He believed his crime was undetectable. But Michael made one critical mistake. He committed his crime in a house filled with devices that recorded everything. His smart home, the technology he was so proud of, became the witness that exposed his attempted murder. Martinez outlined the evidence the jury would see and hear. You will see the Amazon order for arsenic. You will see Ring camera footage of the arsenic being delivered. You will see smart refrigerator photos of Michael adding poison to Rebecca's coffee creamer. You will hear Alexa recordings of Michael researching arsenic poisoning. You will hear vehicle recordings of Michael discussing Rebecca's declining health with his mistress. You will see months of internet searches about poison and murder. And you will hear from Rebecca herself about her 6-month ordeal being systematically poisoned by the man she loved and trusted. Defense attorney Patricia Morrison acknowledged the difficulty of her task in her opening statement. The prosecution will present evidence that appears damning, but I ask you to carefully consider the limitations and reliability of that evidence. Smart home devices record fragments, not complete pictures. Digital evidence can be misinterpreted or taken out of context. And the prosecution must prove beyond reasonable doubt that Michael Bennett intentionally poisoned his wife. That requires proving not just that arsenic was present, but that Michael knowingly and deliberately administered it with intent to kill. The evidence is not as clear as the prosecution wants you to believe. The defense strategy was weak given the overwhelming evidence, but Morrison had to try to create some doubt about the interpretation of the digital data, or suggest that Rebecca's poisoning could have been accidental or from an unknown source. The prosecution's case proceeded over 5 weeks, systematically presenting the evidence from both traditional forensics and smart home devices. Medical experts testified about Rebecca's arsenic poisoning, the effects on her body, and how she had nearly died. Rebecca Bennett's blood arsenic levels when she was hospitalized in May were consistent with sustained chronic poisoning over several months, testified Dr. Sarah Martinez. The pattern of her symptoms, the progression of her organ damage, and the toxicology results all indicate systematic exposure to arsenic in doses calculated to cause gradual illness and eventual death. If we hadn't identified the arsenic and begun chelation therapy when we did, Rebecca would have died within weeks or possibly days. Forensic experts testified about finding arsenic in the Bennett home, specifically in Rebecca's coffee creamer and on surfaces in the kitchen. Michael's fingerprints were found on the arsenic container, and his DNA was found on the measuring spoon contaminated with arsenic residue. But the most compelling evidence was the smart home data. The prosecution called digital forensics experts who walked the jury through each device, each recording, each photograph, and each data point, creating a comprehensive timeline of Michael's research, planning, purchase of poison, and systematic administration of arsenic to his wife. Dr. James Rodriguez, the FBI's lead digital forensics expert on the case, testified for 2 full days, explaining how smart home devices work, what data they collect, how that data is stored, and how investigators accessed and verified the authenticity of the Bennett home data. Every device in the Bennett home was collecting and transmitting data, Dr. Rodriguez testified. Amazon Alexa devices recorded voice interactions. Ring cameras recorded video. The smart refrigerator photographed its contents. The smart TV logged browser history. All of this data was automatically uploaded to cloud servers maintained by the manufacturers. When we obtained warrants for this data, we received comprehensive logs showing Michael Bennett's activities over months, activities that documented his purchase of poison, his research into arsenic, his addition of poison to his wife's food, and his discussions about her declining health. The prosecution played selected Alexa recordings, with jurors hearing Michael's voice asking about arsenic symptoms and researching poison effects. The recordings were chilling Michael's calm, methodical voice, researching how to murder his wife while she slept upstairs. The smart refrigerator photos were displayed on large screens so jurors could see the time-stamped images of Michael adding white powder to Rebecca's coffee creamer. While the photos were grainy, experts testified that Michael's distinctive jewelry, his USC ring, and Rolex watch were clearly visible, and the timestamp showed the photo was taken at 6:14 a.m. on January 15, 2024. the date Rebecca first began feeling ill. The smart refrigerator photo is remarkable evidence, Martinez stated in presenting it to the jury. Michael Bennet didn't know he was being photographed. He thought he was alone in his kitchen, adding poison to his wife's coffee, committing what he believed would be the perfect, undetectable crime. But his own refrigerator was documenting his actions. Technology designed to help you see what food you have ended up documenting attempted murder. The vehicle recordings of Michael's conversations with Vanessa Torres were particularly damning. The jury heard Michael's voice stating that Rebecca wasn't sick yet, but she will be, and discussing how he would be free once Rebecca's health deteriorated according to plan. Several jurors were visibly disturbed by the recordings, with one juror later stating, "Hearing Michael Bennet calmly discuss his wife's impending death while knowing he was causing it was one of the most chilling things I have ever experienced." His voice was so matter-of-fact, like he was discussing a business transaction rather than his wife's murder. It made it clear this wasn't accidental. This was calculated, intentional, and completely without empathy. Financial experts testified about Michael's gambling debts, his cryptocurrency losses, and the $5.2 million he stood to inherit if Rebecca died. The testimony established clear motive. Michael was drowning in secret debts and facing financial ruin and professional humiliation if his gambling and losses were discovered. Michael Bennet had approximately $480,000 in debts Rebecca knew nothing about, testified forensic accountant Sarah Williams. He was facing collection actions, potential discovery by his law firm, and complete financial collapse. Rebecca's death would solve all of these problems. He'd inherit over $5 million, pay all his debts, maintain his lifestyle, and start a new life with his mistress. Financially, killing Rebecca made perfect sense to Michael Bennet. The most emotional testimony came from Rebecca Bennet herself, who took the stand during the trial's fourth week. Rebecca had continued to recover from the poisoning, but still showed physical effects. She had lost significant weight. Her hair was thin and brittle from the months of poisoning, and she moved slowly and carefully, still suffering from nerve damage in her extremities. Rebecca testified about her marriage to Michael, her belief that they were happy and building a life together, and her complete shock at discovering he had been poisoning her. "I trusted Michael completely," Rebecca testified, tears streaming down her face. "When I started getting sick, he seemed so concerned. He took me to doctors. He researched my symptoms. He brought me food and drinks. He held me when I cried because I was so scared I was dying. And the whole time, he was the one killing me. He was poisoning my coffee every morning, watching me suffer, and pretending to be a supportive husband. I can't describe the betrayal I feel. The man I loved never existed. The real Michael Bennet is a monster who tried to murder me for money while lying to my face and telling me he loved me." Rebecca described the symptoms she experienced: the nausea, vomiting, pain, hair loss, confusion, weakness. "I thought I was dying. I was making peace with it because doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong. I was writing goodbye letters to my family, and Michael read those letters and comforted me while continuing to poison me." How can someone be that evil? Prosecutor Martinez asked Rebecca directly. "Do you believe Michael Bennet tried to kill you?" "Yes," Rebecca answered without hesitation. "The evidence is overwhelming. He researched arsenic, ordered it, added it to my coffee, watched me nearly die, and planned to collect millions when I finally did die. He didn't make a mistake. He didn't accidentally poison me. He tried to murder me, and he would have succeeded if not for smart doctors and the technology in our house that documented his crime. Cross-examination of Rebecca was challenging for the defense. Morrison attempted to suggest that Rebecca might have accidentally ingested arsenic from some other source, or that Michael's internet searches could have been for innocent purposes. But Rebecca's responses were firm and credible. "Are you certain Michael added arsenic to your coffee?" Morrison asked. "Yes. The smart refrigerator photographed him doing it. The Alexa devices recorded him researching arsenic. The timeline of my poisoning matches exactly with Michael preparing my coffee each morning. And he had clear motive my death would give him millions of dollars and allow him to be with his mistress. There's no doubt." The defense's case was brief and largely unsuccessful. Morrison called expert witnesses who testified about the limitations of smart home data, suggesting that recordings could be incomplete or misinterpreted. She called character witnesses who testified that Michael had been a respected attorney and had seemed like a good husband. But the testimony was unconvincing given the overwhelming evidence. The defense's critical decision was whether to have Michael testify. Morrison strongly advised against it, knowing that Michael's affair, his gambling, his debts, and his lack of genuine remorse would destroy any sympathy he might generate. Michael insisted on testifying, apparently believing he could explain away the evidence and convince the jury of his innocence. His testimony would prove to be a disaster. Taking the stand in a suit meant to remind jurors of his professional status, Michael attempted to present himself as a devoted husband who had been falsely accused. He denied poisoning Rebecca, claimed his internet searches were for work-related research, and suggested that the smart home data had been misinterpreted, or that Rebecca might have been poisoned by some unknown source. "I loved Rebecca," Michael testified, his voice steady but his effect flat. "I would never hurt her. Her illness was devastating to me. I spent months trying to help her, trying to find doctors who could figure out what was wrong. The suggestion that I was poisoning her is absurd and offensive." Martinez's cross-examination destroyed Michael's testimony. She confronted him with specific pieces of evidence, forcing him to either admit his guilt or offer implausible alternative explanations. "Mr. Bennett, you ordered 100 grams of arsenic trioxide from an online chemical supplier. What innocent purpose did you have for ordering poison?" "I was researching for a case at work, a client matter." Michael's explanation was transparently false. "What client? What case? Can you provide any documentation of this supposed work matter that required you to personally order arsenic?" Michael couldn't. His law firm had already testified that no client matters involving arsenic or chemical analysis had been assigned to Michael during the relevant time period. Martinez then played the vehicle recording of Michael telling Vanessa that Rebecca wasn't sick yet, but she will be. "Mr. Bennett, you said your wife wasn't sick yet, but she will be." "How did you know Rebecca would become sick if you weren't planning to make her sick?" I was just making conversation. I was being dramatic. I didn't literally mean, you said nature is going to take its course and soon I'll be a widower. That sounds like you knew Rebecca was going to die." How did you know that if you weren't planning to kill her? Michael had no good answer. His testimony continued to unravel as Martinez systematically demolished each explanation he offered. Most damaging was when Martinez asked Michael about the smart refrigerator photo showing him adding white powder to Rebecca's coffee creamer. That photo shows you adding something to your wife's coffee creamer bottle at 6:14 a.m. on January 15th, the first day she became ill. What were you adding? I don't remember. Maybe I was adding sugar or something. Maybe that photo is from a different time. The photo is time-stamped and authenticated by Samsung's servers. It's definitely from January 15th at 6:14 a.m. And our forensic testing showed that the coffee creamer contained arsenic. So I'll ask again, what were you adding to your wife's coffee creamer? Michael couldn't answer without either admitting guilt or offering an obviously false explanation. His silence was damning. The jury later reported that Michael's testimony convinced them absolutely of his guilt. He was a lawyer, he knew how to talk, how to present himself, one juror stated after the trial. But his explanations made no sense. The evidence showed he had ordered poison, researched how to use it, and added it to his wife's coffee while his smart home documented everything. His attempts to explain it away were pathetic. Closing arguments reinforced the competing narratives. Martinez's closing was comprehensive and powerful. Michael Bennett spent 6 months trying to murder his wife. He researched arsenic poisoning. He ordered poison online. He added it to Rebecca's coffee every morning. He watched her suffer and nearly die. He did all of this for money to inherit Rebecca's estate, collect her life insurance, and start a new life with his mistress. The evidence is overwhelming. His own smart home devices documented his crimes. He is guilty of attempted murder, and he deserves the maximum punishment. Morrison's closing attempted to create doubt. The prosecution has presented evidence, but much of it is subject to interpretation. Smart home devices record fragments, not complete pictures. The prosecution wants you to believe these fragments prove attempted murder beyond reasonable doubt. But reasonable doubt exists. You must be certain, not just suspicious. If you have doubt, you must acquit. The jury deliberated for 7 hours before announcing they had reached a verdict. The courtroom was packed when they returned media, victim advocates, legal observers, and both the Bennett and Morrison families. Michael sat at the defense table looking tense but still maintaining composure, apparently still believing he might be acquitted. "Will the defendant please rise?" Judge Torres instructed. Michael stood, and for the first time Rebecca, sitting in the gallery in her wheelchair, saw genuine fear in her husband's eyes. "Madam Foreperson, has the jury reached a verdict?" "Yes, Your Honor, we have." "What is your verdict?" "In the case of Commonwealth of Virginia versus Michael Bennett, on the charge of attempted murder in the first degree, we the jury find the defendant guilty." The courtroom erupted in gasps and reactions. Michael's face went white, his confident facade finally shattering completely. The foreperson continued, reading guilty verdicts on all charges: poisoning, assault with intent to kill, conspiracy to commit murder. Michael looked like he couldn't believe it. Rebecca later stated in an interview, he genuinely thought he'd be acquitted, that his lawyer status and his explanations would be enough. The reality of being convicted of trying to murder me finally broke through his narcissism. He understood for the first time that he would spend decades in prison. The conviction triggered sentencing proceedings, which took an additional 2 weeks. The prosecution sought the maximum sentence of 40 years in prison, essentially a life sentence for a 42-year-old defendant. The defense argued for a reduced sentence, claiming Michael had no prior criminal history and deserved consideration for the fact that Rebecca had survived. Rebecca provided powerful victim impact testimony during sentencing. Michael Bennett poisoned me every morning for 6 months. He watched me suffer, lose weight, lose my hair, develop seizures. He held me while I cried, terrified I was dying. And the whole time, he was the one killing me. I've suffered permanent kidney and liver damage. I have nerve damage in my hands and feet that may never fully heal. I have nightmares about drinking coffee, about trusting anyone with my food. Michael destroyed my health, my sense of security, my ability to trust. He deserves the maximum sentence because he tried to commit the perfect murder, and would have succeeded if not for smart doctors and the technology he didn't realize was documenting his crime. Judge Torres scheduled formal sentencing for October 23, 2024. The sentencing, hearing the scene we opened with, would become memorable for the judge's powerful statement about Michael's arrogance and the irony of his smart home exposing his crime. After imposing the 40-year sentence, Judge Torres delivered additional remarks that captured the case's significance. Mr. Bennett, you believed you were smarter than everyone else. Smarter than your wife. Smarter than doctors. Smarter than police. You spent months researching how to commit the perfect murder. You calculated doses, timed your poisoning, maintained your performance as a devoted husband. You thought you had planned everything perfectly. But you never considered that the technology in your own home would betray you. The smart home you were so proud of, the Alexa devices, the Ring cameras, the smart refrigerator, the connected car, all of it was documenting your crime. Every search, every recording, every photograph, creating a comprehensive record of your attempted murder. This case represents a new frontier in criminal justice. Smart home devices served as silent witnesses to your crimes. They didn't forget. They didn't misremember. They simply recorded objective facts. And those facts proved your guilt beyond any doubt. You will spend the next 40 years in prison thinking about the life you destroyed, not just your wife's life, but your own. You were a successful attorney with a good marriage, a comfortable life, and a bright future. You threw it all away because of gambling debts, because of an affair, because of greed. And you were caught because the technology you installed to make your life more convenient ended up documenting your crimes. Your smart home was smarter than you were, and that will be your legacy. Michael Bennett was immediately remanded to custody to begin his 40-year sentence. He would be 82 years old before becoming eligible for release, assuming he even survived that long in prison. His legal career was destroyed, his marriage was over, his mistress had testified against him. His reputation was permanently ruined, and all because he had underestimated the digital footprint created by his own smart home. The case generated enormous discussion about privacy, technology, and criminal justice. Privacy advocates expressed concern about the precedent of using smart home data as evidence, arguing it created a surveillance state where people's homes could be monitored without their knowledge. The Bennett case raises serious privacy concerns, argued civil liberties attorney Marcus Johnson in media commentary. Yes, Bennett was guilty and deserved conviction. But the principle that smart home devices can record everything we do and say in our homes, and that data can be used against us, is troubling. We are creating a world where our homes are no longer private spaces but potential crime scenes being constantly documented. Prosecutors and law enforcement countered that smart home data was no different from any other evidence, and that defendants had no reasonable expectation of privacy in data they voluntarily transmitted to corporate servers. Michael Bennett chose to install these devices, argued prosecutor Jennifer Martinez. He accepted terms of service allowing data collection. He was aware the devices recorded and transmitted information. He just didn't think that data would be used to expose his crimes. The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches, but collecting data from devices that users voluntarily activate is not unreasonable. Technology companies issued statements clarifying that they only provide user data to law enforcement pursuant to valid warrants, and that they take user privacy seriously. But the Bennett case demonstrated clearly that smart home devices do create extensive records of users' activities, records that can be accessed by investigators and used as evidence. The case became required reading in law schools, in criminal justice courses, and in technology ethics programs. It illustrated the intersection of traditional criminal investigation with modern technology, and raised questions about the future of privacy in an increasingly connected world. For Rebecca Bennett, the conviction and sentence provided some measure of justice but couldn't undo the physical and emotional damage Michael had inflicted. She continued medical treatment for her kidney and liver damage, saw therapists to process the trauma and betrayal, and slowly rebuilt her life. I survived 6 months of systematic poisoning by my husband, Rebecca stated in an interview 6 months after the trial. Physically, I'm recovering, though I have permanent damage. Emotionally, I'm still processing the betrayal. The man I thought I knew never existed. The real Michael Bennett was someone who could watch me suffer and die while pretending to love me. But I'm alive. The smart home technology Michael installed, thinking it would make our lives easier, ended up saving my life by documenting his crime. That's the irony I hold on to. Rebecca became an advocate for domestic violence awareness, speaking about her experience and the importance of recognizing that perpetrators can be anyone successful professionals, seemingly devoted spouses, people who appear normal and trustworthy on the surface. Domestic violence and intimate partner violence don't have a type, Rebecca said in a speech at a victims' advocacy conference. Michael was a lawyer. We were wealthy. We appeared to have the perfect life. No one would have suspected he was capable of trying to murder me. But predators exist at every socioeconomic level, and modern technology, while raising privacy concerns, can also serve as a witness when human witnesses aren't present. My smart refrigerator documented Michael poisoning me. My Alexa device recorded him researching arsenic. The technology he installed ended up exposing his crime. Michael Bennett filed appeals challenging his conviction, arguing that the smart home evidence had been admitted improperly and violated his privacy rights. However, Virginia appellate courts rejected his arguments, finding that Michael had voluntarily installed the devices, accepted terms of service allowing data collection, and had no reasonable expectation of privacy in data transmitted to third-party corporate servers. As of late 2024, Michael remains incarcerated in Virginia, serving his 40-year sentence. He has been disbarred, divorced. Rebecca finalized their divorce while Michael awaited trial, and completely ostracized by former friends and colleagues. He will spend the next several decades behind bars, a cautionary tale about greed, betrayal, and the unexpected consequences of living in a smart home. Vanessa Torres, Michael's former mistress, struggled with guilt and humiliation after learning she had been involved with someone actively trying to murder his wife. She cooperated fully with prosecutors, provided crucial testimony, and eventually moved to a different state to escape the association with the case. The Bennett case fundamentally changed how law enforcement approaches digital evidence and how technology companies think about user privacy and data retention. It demonstrated that smart home devices can serve as powerful witnesses to crimes for better or worse, and that perpetrators can no longer assume their crimes are unobservable if committed in the apparent privacy of their homes. The Bennett case marks a turning point, noted legal technology expert Professor James Wong. We've entered an era where our homes are filled with devices that observe and record our activities. Those devices create data trails that can be invaluable for solving crimes, but they also raise profound questions about privacy, about the boundaries between public and private spaces, and about the kind of society we want to live in. Michael Bennett's case shows both the power and the peril of our connected world. For prosecutors, the case provided a blueprint for using smart home evidence effectively. The Bennett prosecution demonstrated that smart home data, when properly authenticated and presented, can be powerful evidence, stated Jennifer Martinez. But it also showed that prosecutors need to educate jurors about how these devices work, what data they collect, and why that data is reliable. We spent significant time at trial explaining the technology, so jurors understood they weren't just taking our word about what the devices recorded, they were seeing authenticated data logs proving what happened. The case also prompted some consumers to reconsider their enthusiasm for smart home devices, and to think more carefully about the privacy implications of filling their homes with always-on, always listening, always recording technology. After the Bennett case, I unplugged my Alexa, stated one consumer interviewed for a news story about the case. I hadn't really thought about the fact that it's recording everything and sending that data to Amazon's servers. I understand it helped catch a murderer in this case, but I'm not comfortable having devices in my home that document everything I say and do. The convenience isn't worth the loss of privacy. But others argued that the benefits of smart home technology, convenience, security, automation outweighed privacy concerns, especially for those with nothing to hide. I'm keeping my smart home devices, stated another consumer. If someone breaks into my house, my Ring cameras will capture it. If there's an emergency, my smart devices can call for help. And if I'm not committing crimes, I don't have to worry about the data being used against me. Michael Bennett was caught because he was poisoning his wife. That's a feature, not a bug. The debate about privacy, technology, and surveillance continues, with the Bennett case serving as a prominent example in discussions about the implications of living in an increasingly connected and monitored world. Michael Bennett's attempted murder of his wife Rebecca was foiled not by a witness, not by a confession, not by traditional detective work, but by the technology in his own home. His Alexa heard him researching poison. His Ring camera recorded the poison being delivered. His smart refrigerator photographed him adding arsenic to his wife's coffee. His smart TV logged his searches about murder methods. His car recorded his discussions of Rebecca's impending death. Every device in his smart home was silently documenting his crime, creating a comprehensive digital record that would ultimately convict him and send him to prison for 40 years. Judge Torres's words at sentencing captured the ultimate irony. Your smart home was smarter than you were. Michael Bennett thought he was committing the perfect crime. Instead, he committed one of the best documented attempted murders in American legal history. Documented not by human witnesses, but by the very technology he had installed to make his life more convenient. He poisoned his wife's coffee every morning for 6 months. His smart home recorded every step. And now he will spend 4 decades in prison because he never realized that his house was watching him commit his crimes. The case stands as a landmark at the intersection of criminal justice and technology, a cautionary tale about privacy and surveillance, and a reminder that in the modern connected world, there are fewer truly private spaces than we might believe. For better or worse, our devices are watching, listening, and recording, creating digital witnesses to our lives that can serve justice or invade privacy depending on perspective. Rebecca Bennett survived because of smart doctors and smart home devices. Michael Bennett was convicted because he underestimated the technology in his own house, and the rest of us are left to ponder what it means to live in homes that observe and document our every action, waiting to serve as witnesses if we ever commit crimes or to invade our privacy if we value security over surveillance. Michael Bennett's attempted murder of his wife failed, but his case succeeded in forcing all of us to confront uncomfortable questions about the price of convenience, the nature of privacy, and the reality that in a smart home, you're never truly alone. The devices are always watching, always listening, always recording, always ready to expose the truth.